All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying for the final session of the day. We are really excited to chat with you for a little bit here. My name is Danielle Byrd. I am an SVP of Lifestyle and Partnerships at MarketCast, and we are a full-service research and analytics company. And I am joined today by Brett O'Brien.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brett. I've been with Pepsi for about 21 years and have had the good fortune of managing our Gatorade performance portfolio for the last 10 years. So happy to be here.
Great. Do you mind expanding a little bit more on your role, what you do day to day, and then we'll kind of dive in from there?
Yeah, sure. So as the GM of the portfolio, it's a little bit everything, and it kind of ebbs and flows. And the last couple of years have been really heavily dedicated to supply chain and commodities and getting bottles from Mexico and everywhere else in the world. And it's been a crazy couple of years for sure. But on a usual year, it's much more balanced with across the marketing and innovation and where we're putting our dollars and where we're putting our voice and how we're continuing to drive what this portfolio can offer to athletes.
Great. Well, I just have to quickly mention I love all of the New Balance gear that you have. You're very on brand for this.
Yeah, I love New Balance. I'm a huge New Balance fan. I love what they represent. I love their heritage, but I love that they're branching out and doing some amazing stuff. So I'm proud to represent New Balance all day long.
And a Boston native, so you have to represent the Boston brands here.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Yep, hometown.
I love it. Well, we have a quick video to show that's just like a little bit about kind of what you guys are doing from a consumer lens, and then we'll dive into some more questions.
Let's get it.
Yo, you know we're not shooting threes, right?
Definitely not shooting threes.
Introducing Gatorade.
Let's go. Stick and move.
Rapid rehydration.
Ready, Dan?
Let's do this, Ryan.
Plus a specialized blend of 5 electrolytes.
See you learn quick.
Watch out.
You rehydrate well, too.
Gatorade. Rapid rehydration. All G.
So just real quick on that commercial that you have, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how has Gatorade, and I know Gatorlight was the brand here, but how have you guys been thinking about like your changing consumer base and maybe a little bit more like the everyday athlete?
Yeah. So what's interesting in that context for this ad is less about the ad itself and more about the closing image, which was. If you caught it, it says all G, and then it shows a portfolio of products. And you'll see that a lot more from us because I think when people think about Gatorade, they think about us as a one-trick pony, and that it's the Gatorade that you all probably drank when you were athletes, and certainly what I drank when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. And I think there's a distinct difference to what athletes require now. And I don't mean that the carbohydrates and electrolyte mix is different. I mean athletes are truly looking for personalized solutions at different part of their workout routines and different part of their training. And so you might have light days that you train, you might have heavy days that you train. And in the heavy days, you may need more electrolytes. You might be a really heavy sweater. And how would you know that? It's when you're done with your workout. Do you have kind of white rings where that sweat has settled and dried? And if you are, you probably need more electrolytes. And so it's not just about consuming more Gatorade, it's about consuming the right kind of Gatorade. And so as we continue down this journey of education and trying to teach athletes how to put the best things in their body to help them with their performance, it's about creating the portfolio that they have access to as well. And so you'll see things from us start to emerge. Gatorlade's a good example of a high electrolyte beverage. We've got a G-Fit we just launched, which is no artificial anything, and all of the carbohydrates coming from watermelon juice. And you'll continue to see different offerings where people can self-select into the portfolio and choose what they want based on their individual athlete needs.
Talk to me a little bit more about like innovation and how you think about innovation. I know when we were prepping for this call, we talked a little bit about like big data and how that leads into what you're picking to innovate on and how you're thinking about maybe new flavors, new products, etc. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure can. We do a ton of data searching and mining, and directly with athletes, and one of the areas that we really dig deep into. I don't know how many of you are familiar with IMG down in Bradenton, but we work really closely with IMG. We have what's called a Gatorade Sports Science Institute down there, and our scientists down there test and poke and prod and find everything they can within this kind of petri dish of young athletes, and we do a lot of innovation based on that. But it has to go a lot broader, and we do a lot with Hispanic athletes. We do a lot with young black male athletes, female athletes. What do they need that's differentiated? Is there anything they need that's differentiated? What about older athletes, folks that are just kind of looking for a routine as opposed to judging themselves by a scoreboard? What are they looking for? And so a big part of it is product innovation as a result of all of that. But the other part of it is just pure education. How do you teach athletes? How do you get into an athlete mindset and then help them become better by what our portfolio can offer? And it's not just as simple as putting it on a shelf and letting people self-select. There has to be a much deeper education journey. And that's where we tend to rely a lot on data to help us formulate that strategy, but also formulate the best way to then talk to athletes to help educate them.
It's really interesting. I love that you guys are doing some testing and learning down in Florida. It feels like it goes back to Gatorade's roots, right? And those Florida roots. On kind of the continuation of like being there for the athletes, when you think about COVID and you think about what people were looking for from like an at-home workout perspective, how did that impact what you were looking to do, supply chains, et cetera?
Yeah. So, man, it's been a really interesting couple of years for everybody for all of our own reasons, for sure. And from a business standpoint, from a Gatorade perspective, there's kind of two layers to it. You're right, the supply chain issues have been pretty crazy. Just securing materials and then being able to get materials out and fill the shelves, and it's been really tricky. But what's really interesting for us, going back to the data and what we're learning from athletes, there's this huge momentum to go and work out at home, which I don't think any of you would find alarm or new news. Of course, I'm sure all of you have thought about Peloton or Mirror or Tonal or gotten workouts online. And yet, what's interesting from our business is so now you're going to the store maybe once a week. You've got a set time that you're going to go because you're a little bit nervous about just coming and going during COVID. And you're buying in bulk, so you're buying large amounts of that product whenever you go in because you got to make it last until the next time you go. But the other intricacy for us was now you have more people in the household too. So maybe your sons and daughters or your cousins or your uncles or whatever have come to stay with you because it's a place where they can kind of dig down and be safe for a couple of years or however long it extends at the time. And now they're buying products for them as well. So what we saw the buy rates just shot through the roof, especially in products that people trusted, that they relied on, that they knew they could, that they would use and that others in the household would use. And so in the past, where you might pick up Gatorade, lemon lime for yourself, now you're picking up G0 for somebody else in your household. You're picking up a new flavor for somebody else, and that was a really interesting one for us, and it's super interesting now to see how much that continues as people start to get back into their general routines like before. They haven't yet fully acclimated back into gyms and health clubs and fitness centers. There still is this kind of now mixed, I'm going to do a lot at home when I can or when I want to because I'm comfortable with that now. And so that buying pattern hasn't really dissolved yet. So it's really interesting.
Keeping on the topic of COVID and kind of the impact that it's had, I know we're here today to talk a little bit more about some of the cause marketing that you're doing. And we really talked about like youth sports and the impact that you have seen that COVID has had on youth sports. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's had a tremendous impact on youth sports. If any of you have kiddos who play youth sports, you would know exactly what I mean. I think I saw a stat lately that was, or not too long ago, that was 40% of local either access or community sports offerings were either reduced or canceled over COVID. So what does that mean? That means there's less things that I can do at the YMCA or at the Boys and Girls Clubs. There's karate dojos that are shutting down. There's gymnastics, there's dance. There's all of those things that were so hard to keep open during COVID are one less outlet that our kids, our youth get to kind of experience and get involved in. And so it's a big issue, and it's something that schools are having a tough time curriculum-wise. If you got some tough dollars and things are tightening, and you've got issues with headcount and teachers. unfortunately, that's the place that they start to cut, and so it's a big issue, and I think the last 2 years have certainly increased the speed in which we need to react to those issues that are happening.
And so kind of partially to combat that, we have the Fuel Tomorrow campaign, and we can actually show the video real quick if that works, and we'll move out of the way.
There's a moment. Blink, you'll miss it. But in that second, the game changes everything. That first swing, step, look. The moment we ask,
what if? What if we could go further, jump higher, or run the whole thing? What if we could be who we're meant to be? It can happen.
It can happen.
It could happen if we're given the chance to play and become who we look up to. That's when we find our stride. And tomorrow belongs to us. This is the moment it all starts.
This is the moment it all starts.
But only if we get the chance to have it.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about the campaign.
So this one's been a long time in coming for us, and like I said, the past couple of years have certainly escalated our need, or our internal feeling that we needed to get this out. So for years, we've done at Gatorade what we call formative experience, and that formative experience is all about how do you talk to youth athletes in the geographies where they are. So go out to their high schools, go out to their youth camps and clinics, and talk to them about how they're fueling. And it's not about, hey, drink Gatorade. It's think about what you're doing on the field or ahead of the field or hours before. Are you missing breakfast? Are you missing lunch? And then are you getting to the field to play on an empty stomach? And what does that do to you from an energy standpoint? And how do we talk about nutrition and what goes into your body as far as then helping to achieve the goals that you're trying to set for yourself? So we've done that for years, and it's been an amazing program for us to have direct access to youth athletes and really good education. But man, we saw those numbers dwindling pretty dramatically. And we realized it's less about us trying to tell the fueling message and more about us trying to say, just get out and play message. Like, you got to play before you can then learn how to fuel. And man, that's a problem, right? And the, you know, at least from my point of view, athletics and sports and playing, it should never be a privilege. It should always be something that every one of us has access to. And that was not happening, and it's not happening. And so how do we, as a brand ingrained in sport, who were built to meet an athlete need, think about what the athlete needs are today and how we participate in that? And so that's really what the genesis of Fuel Tomorrow was the athlete need is a lot different than it was in 1965 when we created Gatorade for Florida football players. Now it's how do you create access and make sure that athletes can actually participate before we even engage in that conversation. So that's the genesis of Fuel Tomorrow, and it's something that we're really passionate about, and we just kicked it off about 6 months ago. And it's at least a 5-year plan, but we think it's a heck of a lot longer than that.
That's incredible. It's really important, especially, I mean, I was saying a little bit about this. I started my career in college athletics and was, watching a lot of the Olympic sports, get the programs get cut over the course of COVID and just kind of seeing even those changes there. And that's not even at the youth level, right? So really important to kind of be there supporting kids getting out and playing. Tell us a little bit more about like cause marketing and Gatorade's relationship in general. Do you see it as a competitive differentiator? Is it we just need to be there? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's a dangerous place to play in cause marketing when you think about it in terms of competition or how you're going to stand out from a crowded field in whatever industry you're in. Because I'm not sure that the impact that you'll make off of that decision is necessarily the right one or lasting. And I think your decision making will then be very different. If you go into it thinking that way, great. Your measurements and how you're then evaluating your success might be a little bit different. And that's okay. But for us, I didn't want this to be about competition. I didn't want it to be about well, we're going to go shout from the rooftops how important we are in making this impact. It's how do we raise awareness for the fact that this is happening? And it's interesting. If in that ad you may have caught, there's a point where the young woman opens up her email and it's a letter from University of Florida saying that she's been accepted. And that was really important for us to add to that because I saw there's female CFOs, 96% participated in sport throughout high school. How crazy is that, right? So think about that. Doesn't mean they're professional athletes. That's not the point. The point is what they learned through participating and being part of that journey was about leadership and about what they stood for within a larger group of team and how to rally a community around them and how to do their best and how to learn from failure. And man, we got to generate more of that. And so for us, it may play out to be a competitive advantage, but I don't want to go into it with that mindset. I think it's really important for us to go into the mindset of what are we doing to truly make an impact on the sports community, especially at a youth angle. That's how I want to measure it. And then, it may help us in the long run with business, and I hope it does. I hope that more athletes on the field participating, continuing to grow in that sport, then helps them perform better through the fuel that we can provide. But let's start with the catalyst first.
No, that makes sense. I also, going back to the ad, because you touched on it a little bit, I love the diversity that you're seeing across the entirety of the ad. Like, it's not about basketball, football. It is, you have somebody doing ballet. You have so much variety in terms of the sports that you're looking at. Talk to us a little bit about how Gatorade is kind of evolving in terms of who they're looking to talk to through these advertisements.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we learned through this process in speaking with a lot of agencies and foundations that are involved in youth sport was there's a real need for youth to identify with the sports that they're seeing or for the people that they're seeing within that sport. And there is a lot of folks out there who have no interest in playing basketball, who don't want to play soccer, who think about a lot of young women don't want to wear a uniform that's being told that they have to wear, and they're just worried that they're not going to fit into it, and then they're going to say, it's just easier to not play, and I want to get out. A lot of boys feel that way too, especially at that young age when your body's changing. It's just so awkward. So it doesn't mean you have to fit into the traditional sense of what we think in stick and ball sports. There's such a wide variety and opportunity for you to get out there and just play and move and feel like you can express yourself in a very different way. And so, yeah, there's simple, images in there, and I'm glad you caught some. But let's talk about movement and play in that regard, as opposed to the traditional sense of you should play sports, so you got to go play football or baseball or soccer. And those are super important to us too. We love those sports, but it should be equal opportunity for everybody. And no matter what you look like, no matter what the environment is or what your aspirations are, you need to start seeing some of that as aspirational, as opposed to I got to keep this quiet.
No, that makes sense. Sports as a mode of empowerment. A couple of other things, just when you think about the campaign in particular, there's definitely the national strategy as well as the different local elements. Talk to us a little bit about how they kind of ladder up to one another, maybe some secrets for the people in the room here.
Yeah, so national obviously is incredibly important for us to get the message out that this is happening, that we're looking to make an impact here, and we're working with a bunch of foundations and agencies to bring that to life. That's just kind of the story. The application of it, though, happens at the local level and at the grassroots level, right? So when you think about, our business, our athletes are our end users, but we have a huge customer base that gets the product to that end user. And so you think about places like Walmart and Kroger and Stop and Shop right down the street. What makes them really excited about this program is that they can then apply their own community outreach programming to it as well. And so, Walmart's a great example. They heard about this and said, hey, we want to build a bigger partnership with Boys and Girls Clubs across the country, but we want to do it at the local level. So how can you help us generate some real great connection there with what you are doing and what our stores can do? And so it comes to life at the local level on the retail side, which is great. But it's also, hey, national is awesome, but national doesn't work unless the local kids see it and have access, or forget if they even see the program. If for some reason they got invited to something that benefited from one of the agencies that we worked with, or they got to play a little bit longer, or there was lights on their field, or they actually got a field, that's where this all comes to play.
That's great. I think my mic died. It's okay. We can come back here. Oh, awesome.
All right.
Thanks. The mic is tired. It's done for the day. So just, I guess, continuing along that path of you mentioned retailers, but what else from like a multi-channel marketing strategy, like what are you focused on in particular outside of just the retailer piece?
In specific to this program?
Specific to this program,
yeah. I think it's important for us to make sure that we've got some amazing partnerships, and folks. We'll take the NBA for example. Amazing partners, but how do we continue to work with them to make sure we leverage their local connections as well? And so, whether they're doing outreach with camps and clinics and introducing kids to the game, both boys and girls, how do we get involved in that and help leverage what's happening here with some of our foundations and agencies, and bring them to life that way? I think it's also so leveraging partnerships is a really big one for us. We don't have to start everything from scratch. There's a huge network out there that we can tap into that then we can help make even broader or more impactful. It's partners like Dick's Sporting Goods, who they're doing some phenomenal things with Keep Kids in Sports, and we do a lot of business with Dick's. And so, okay, how do we combine our forces to actually make some of the things that they're already doing, the things we're interested in doing, even bigger and broader? So it's not about inventing new. It's about making the things that exist better, or filling gaps where they don't exist currently.
That makes sense. On a personal side, I know we talked a little bit about, you are a coach. Like, from your personal perspective, A, what's your favorite sport to coach? And then, B, how have you personally seen, like, youth sports impacted?
Yeah, so coach is a term I wouldn't apply to me, because I've hit my limits. When my daughter turned 10, I was like, okay, I can't teach you guys anything new anymore. You need actually someone who knows what they're doing. But by far my favorite thing was my daughter's basketball. It was awesome to see this age group from like 8 to 11. These girls come together and at first just want to run around and squirt each other with the water bottles and have a lot of fun. And that's important. But to understand, like, wow, we could run a play and actually like make something happen, or I have a role here. Even if I have no idea how to shoot a basketball, that's okay. There's still stuff that I can do. And it is so cool to see that transformation. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen it as well with youth sports, is that when that light turns on of like, whoa, I just did that. That means a lot, because that means you've got an opportunity that the next time your mom or dad or a coach or a teacher says, do you want to sign up for this? You're like, yeah, man, that was so fun. And at that age, that's what's important, being fun. And I had a great time. I love that. I'm not going to be that weird dude that goes and coaches 8-year-old girls without my daughter playing, but I loved it, and I'm going to miss that a ton for sure.
On that note, I'm gonna open up the floor to questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, please, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point, and actually we learned a lot about that the last couple of years, right? This idea of I want to play sport, but I can't necessarily go outside because there's no team sports or no clubs or anything happening. And so I'm forced to kind of figure out what does training look like for me. Now, the different part there is we saw a ton of people getting out and running and doing outdoor sports in a way that, you're right, you can't do that in India. You can't do it in the middle of summer in Florida as much. To me, that's where a lot of our education has to come in. And so there's a couple problems there, though, right? When you're talking about a place like India and third world countries, it's access at all to any kind of fuel or water, and that's a whole nother ballgame that we've got to try to address. But if you can think about a world where you do have access, how do you understand when I need to fuel? I'll tell you what, I ran the Boston Marathon in 2013, I think it was, 13. And I trained in Chicago, because I live in Chicago now, and it was about 5 to 10 degrees during my long runs, and froze my ass off, but you get used to it. Your body acclimates, you wear a lot of layers. Came to the Boston Marathon, and it was 72 degrees that day. So, okay, what do I do for a living? I literally work in hydration for a living. And I dehydrated. I was like dangerously close to having to get trucked out of there. And that scared the crap out of me. And I thought, you know what? If I don't know what to do, how does some kid who's like out trying to train in intense heat know what to do? And so that's a big agenda item for us. It's, providing solutions for people to stay in shape and have routines in home, and one of the great benefits of that is actually access. And if you can create access to online and get programming, we can help with that for sure. But it's also that education of when you are outside and you're doing 2-a-days. Do you know when to fuel? Do you know how to properly enter the field fueled? Do you know when to fuel throughout the day? One last thing that we're working on from a technology standpoint is, if you're a coach, you should be able to see how hydrated your players are. And so you should be able to say, hey, dude, your reading right now is really, really low. You got to get off the field and you got to hydrate. It's going to prevent injuries. It's going to help with head injuries and concussions because you're thinking a little bit more clearly. But that's coming soon. It's how are we monitoring all of your hydration so that we know when it gets dangerously close to we need to help you hydrate quickly. And so there's a lot there, but it's a tough one for us to solve for sure.
Of course, Chris.
Yeah, that's the future. That's the future of where we're headed. Because to me, it's less about creating more access is always great. You should be able to get Gatorade whether you're online or walking into the store. But more important to me is creating a personal relationship with an athlete based on what their personal needs are. So eventually, in the next 6 months, you'll be able to go online, and before you order that personal water bottle, you can fill out a very quick, easy questionnaire about your training and what kind of sports you're interested in and what your goals are. And we'll prescribe to you your personal fuel plan. And it's not just drink Gatorade, have protein with muscle milk, and have an Evolve bar. That's not it. It's, well, based on what you've told us, you've had some knee injuries, and so we think you need some additional collagen, and we've got that for you. And we think, from what your training tells us, you go a little bit lighter and you probably don't need all the carbohydrates, so we recommend G0 for you, but you tell us you're a heavy sweater, so you need Gatorade. So we can come up with a very personalized, prescriptive routine for you that helps you get better to hit the needs that you are looking to hit and your goals. That, to me, is the future of D2C with Gatorade. People don't want to spend money to ship Gatorade bottles in the mail to their house, but they sure as heck are interested in saying, well, you're going to give me a monthly subscription to products that are going to help me better because they're literally prescribed for me. Yeah, that's interesting, and that's where we got to think about things like powders and pods and equipment, but also the products that help meet those needs that the individual athletes are looking for. So to me, that's the future of D2C for Gatorade, and you'll see a heck of a lot more of that too.
Very cool. Any other questions?
Good.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you
that
all.
was fantastic.